Hello, everyone. It's wonderful to be with you. This is Dave Ellis. It's October 25th, 2012. This is a virtual gathering on motivating students and using the power processes. The purpose today is for you to learn and really invent ways, not just to learn ways, but invent ways on your own to inspire students in your Student Success course and in all your courses to learn more effectively and achieve more. Today we're going to review 7 methods for increasing motivation, 12 strategies for creating success, and ways to use affirmations and visualizations to improve attitudes. We've got a lot to do. I've got a lot to say, but more importantly, I want to give you time to speak. I want to give you time to speak possibly what you've never spoken. That's really my job here today. My job is to assist you to think thoughts you've never thought, even write thoughts you've never written, and even say what you've never said. Later on in this call, we're going to break into groups. That's part of the beauty of this phone system that we're using. It's called Maestro Conference. It gives you an opportunity to break into groups and speak to each other in small groups, so we're going to do that later. It also gives me the opportunity to survey you and find out more about who's on the call. You'll get to think, you'll get to create, you'll get to write what you've never written, maybe even feel what you've never felt. The purpose of this virtual gathering is to do that so that you, as a professional, in your classroom, with your colleagues, in your school, but also at home, can take actions you've never taken. That's really what's behind all of this. It's what's behind a Student Success course to help students think what they've never thought, write what they've never written, say what they've never said, and take actions they've never taken. And the purpose of all of that is so that we can create a world that we've never had. Really good to have so many of you on the call. I have a dashboard on my computer that I see Daryl and Kim and Lauren and Rebecca and Lori and Sally and Martha and Roseanne and Louise and Terry and Casey and Cheryl and Katie, and I just can't read all the names, but I welcome you all. I know that most of you are involved in the classroom, but I actually want to start by finding out about all of you. So we're going to do a little survey, and I'll report the survey results. The first survey is, what is your position at your institution? The way we do this survey is with the keypad telephone. If you're a faculty primarily, you may have other jobs, but your primary job is faculty and teacher, please press 1 right now on your keypad. If your primary job, in addition to being faculty, is course coordinator for a Student Success course, please press 2. Your primary job is administrator, please press 3. If you have some other job, please press 4. I'd like you all to vote, that several of you have. Once in a while, if you're on a cell phone, your vote doesn't come through, but let's see, I see that most people have voted. I want to give a little shout out to a couple of people who haven't voted. For example, Paula, if you could press something on your keypad, 1, 2, 3, or 4. Louise, I notice that you haven't voted. But most of you have voted. Teresa, you might press 1 if you're a teacher primarily, 2 if you're a course coordinator, 3 administrator. And what we find here is that 30% of you are primarily faculty, 10% of you course coordinators, 20% of you are administrators, and 20% of you have defined your job as something else. I'm joined on this call by 3 of my colleagues. One is Joshua Edwards, and he is right now collecting those survey results and clearing your hands so we can do one more survey, actually 2 more quick ones before we jump into the matter at hand. Because I want to know how many of you are using Becoming a Master Student. If you are a teacher using a Student Success course, teaching a course, and using Becoming a Master Student, please press 1 on your keypad. If you're not using Becoming a Master Student, but you're using some other book in your Student Success course, please press 2. If you're teaching a course but not using any book, press 3. If you're considering using Becoming a Master Student, press 4. If you don't have anything to do with student success courses and you somehow just stumbled upon this call, please press 5. No, I'm just kind of kidding, of course, because you might be on this call even though you aren't teaching a student success course, and I want you, therefore, to press 5. Once again, there's a few people that hadn't voted. B, if you would press 1, 2, 3, or 4. 1 if you use Becoming a Master Student. 2 if you use some other book. 3 if you're not using a book but teaching a course. 4 if you're considering becoming a master student, or press 5. I also noticed that Adrian hasn't voted, nor has Gail. You can press 5 if it's not applicable. Well, the results of this survey is that 20% of you are using Becoming a Master Student, and a couple of percent of you are considering it, but 22% of you aren't using the book, and 10% of you are teaching a course and using no book, and 28% of you, this question isn't applicable. But I really appreciate knowing that and want to let all of you know that this presentation is not geared to becoming a master student. I'll be taking some ideas from that, but that's not the purpose of it. Nor is the purpose of it to get you to buy that book. Really, I'm here to assist you to think, create new ways to reach students, to motivate them, to involve them. That's my purpose. So let's jump right in. I'm going to start with motivation. And, I'm going to present a few ideas of mine about what we can do to manufacture motivation. I recommend that as I present this, that you take out a piece of paper and you start some notes. Now, of course, you can write down what I say, but I prefer even more that you write down what you think as a result of what I say. My job here is the same as when I teach students in a course, and that is to get you to think something new. I'd like to see if in the next few minutes I can say something about motivation so that you can create new thoughts about it. You can create new ways to think about what you could do to motivate students in your class, really to motivate yourself, maybe even to motivate your coworkers, and maybe even to help motivate people that you live with. So on that piece of paper, if you would write manufacture motivation. Now, in the preview of this and the marketing message that you got before this program, it mentioned I had 5 ideas. I've actually got 7. They all start with M. All these ideas about how to manufacture motivation that I have start with M. And I'm going to review these 7 very quickly, about 5 minutes. Then I'm going to ask that you take the time to write a discovery and an intention statement, what we ask students to do in our classrooms. And we ask them to do that because it gives them time to reflect, create on their own, then to implement. It's way more likely that students will implement that which they create instead of implementing that which somebody suggests that they do. Well, here are my suggestions. Again, they are delivered as fodder for your creativity. And I'll give you a chance to write, think, and then I'm going to break you into small groups to share what it is that you've created. That's a little preview of where we're headed. Well, manufacturing motivation. My first idea is to consider it a myth. Consider motivation, as we usually talk about it, as a myth. It really doesn't exist because we usually talk about it like a noun, like something that exists that we can give to someone else. We can provide to someone else. I don't think we can. And sometimes we talk about it like a thing that exists within ourselves that we are looking for. We're looking for our motivation. But I don't think it's that. I think it's an adverb or an adjective or even a verb. It's a description of an action. It's a description of enthusiasm, excitement, involvement, energy. So as a noun, I'd like to recommend that you consider it a myth. Next idea is motive. That when motivation is missing, what's really missing is the root of the word, which is motive. We can help ourselves get in touch with our long-term motive. What do we want for the next year? What do we want for the next 5 years or 10 years? What do we want for the rest of our life and beyond our life? What's our motive for our legacy? We can help others get in touch with their big picture motive. When we can help ourselves get in touch with our own motive, then we have motivation. We have excitement, energy. We jump out of bed. Third idea, of course, begins with an M, and it's called measure it. I think when we start to put a score on our own motivation, we can get students to put a score on their motivation, all of a sudden we start to measure our excitement, our involvement, our enthusiasm, our interest in life, our energy level. Recommendation is that measure it, and then the next idea is to monitor it. In other words, chart it. Give yourself 1 or 2 scores a day and put it on a graph. I believe that whatever we monitor changes in the direction of our intention. What we're monitoring is motivation, not the noun that we're looking for, but the actions, the verbs that we want to see more in ourselves and others. When we monitor it, it increases. The next idea is to manage. Manage the distance between where you are and where you want to go. Manage the size of the steps to get there. I think we often get resigned when our steps are too big. When we take steps between where we are and where we want to go, just imagine, if you would now, taking a step that was 3 foot tall. Imagine yourself standing up and lifting your foot, trying to get it up to a step that's 3 foot tall. Well, that'd be quite a struggle. And pretty soon you would lose your excitement, your interest, your motivation, because you hadn't managed the stairway up to that next place that you want to arrive. Similarly, if you have too small of steps, you get bored. So if the steps are 3 inches tall instead of 3 foot tall, and you had to keep walking up them, you can imagine it would be quite boring to take that journey. So we want to manage the distance where we are and where we're going and the size of the steps. Next idea is mirroring. Surround yourself with mirrors, people, who will give you feedback about your excitement, your level of motivation, your enthusiasm, your energy level. Similarly, be a mirror for others. Because students often, when they come into the classroom, they don't realize how dead they look. I know some of your classroom students don't do that, but I realize often students come in and they sit there really like lumps on a log, and then they wonder why they feel like a lump on a log. No, you can't really tell them that that's what they look like, but you can mirror in a very respectful way. Like, wow, it looks like there's not much excitement in here today. Looks like something might be wrong. Looks like there's no involvement, enthusiasm. Might be wrong. Maybe you actually feel enthusiastic, but somebody ought to tell your face because you don't look it. That's what a mirror can do. My 7th idea, of course, it starts with an M. I told you I'd do all this in 5 minutes, and so far I've been talking for 5 minutes and 30 seconds. The last idea is to model. You bring enthusiasm, excitement, and motivation. I think it's contagious. I really do believe it's like the flu, and if you bring it, people will catch it. So if you want to manufacture motivation, my ideas are to consider it a myth, develop motive, measure for that, manage, mirror, and model. Well, there's a quick overview of my ideas, but as I told you, my purpose here is to assist you to think. Now, I'm going to be quiet. Quiet while you do what I ask students and professionals. I've been asking college faculty to do this for years. I've been asking students to do this for over 30 years. which is to write a discovery and intention statement. The discovery part is self-reflection. The intention is self-direction. First of all, please write something that starts like this. I discovered that I, or I learned that I rediscovered that I, or I relearned that I. So that's a discovery statement. Something like I discovered that I. Be sure you put the next I, that second I. And then an intention statement, something that looks like I intend to, or I promise to, or my goal is to, or I will. Be quiet for literally a minute so that you can write one of those, or two or three. I think you've got time in a minute to write 3 discoveries and related intentions. First of all, please take a minute, self-reflect, self-direct. Please write. And that's time. Now, I'd like to hear from you. I'd like to hear some of your discoveries and intentions, because what I'd like to be able to do is hear from a few of you. Just want to hear your discovery, one of your discoveries and a related intention with regard to motivation. In particular, I'd like to hear something if it kind of surprised you when you wrote it. We're going to start with Belle. Go ahead, Belle.
Hi, thanks. This is Belle from Washington, and I was yesterday I just taught this Overcoming Procrastination workshop, and I believe that the 7 steps comes from your book. And I was thinking one thing that might be really helpful would be to so I kind of do this experiential activities for each one of the steps, and I have them think of something that they're procrastinating on. And I think what I should add is sort of in terms of your measuring idea, to ask them on a scale of 1 to 10, with 10, like 0 being like 0 motivation and 10 being really high motivation, where are they? And then after I go through the 7 steps, to see if that has shifted. Because sometimes I feel like they leave the workshop and I want them to really see if there's been changes as a result of the workshop or not in terms of their motivation around procrastination.
Great idea, Val. It's a great idea. And it's one, as you mentioned, you can use either in procrastination, you can use it in motivation, you can use it for students to be able to measure their ability to pay attention in a lecture. We measure with grades, but grades are kind of a deferred and a delayed measurement. But that self-measurement, like you're suggesting, really can give people immediate feedback and self-declared feedback.
Mm-hmm.
Thinking. Thanks a lot. Belle did exactly what I'm asking all of you to do, which is to invent some new way to use this. And now we're with Kurt. Yeah, so what did you, as you did that, what did you discover about yourself, and what do you intend to do differently? That's the question.
I'm not quite sure how to motivate my students, at least in one of my classes.
Right.
I teach a Western Civ class for mostly high school students in a community college setting, and they look kind of bored.
Yeah.
And I'm always trying to figure out, I have no trouble teaching my political science course, but the Western Civ course, either I'm making it too dry, so, you know, my goal is to try to figure out how to motivate students a little better. And part of that, I guess, is motivating myself probably to get out of the old lecture mode and regurgitating the book and find other ways to provide information for them, which might make them be a little more excited about it. I mean, I think I'm motivated because I'm providing much more than the book does, but every week as I start the week, I struggle to figure out how to make it interesting.
Yeah.
Maybe it's just not me.
Well, Kurt, I really like your idea that you mentioned about not covering so much of the material. I think a lot of teachers do try to cover too much material in class. That works for some students to hear a lecture, but for most students, they need more involvement than that. They need activities. They need discussion time. They need small group processes, time to reflect and write on their own, and then they get more involved. So I think you've got a good idea there, which is maybe to talk less and look for some other activities to involve the class.
Yeah, I mean, I know to do that, but it's still a struggle. So always keep looking.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Kurt. Let me hear from two more of you. Please press 1 on your keypad. I just want to see, what did you discover and what do you intend to do differently? That's really my challenge here. And it's what I'm recommending that you challenge students in the classroom to do. Please press 1 on your keypad and read one of your discoveries and one of your intentions. I heard a lot of them as I was skipping around in the group, so I'd like to just hear a couple of these publicly as a way to model for others and inspire them on how they could use this information, and also as a way to just cement your own commitment. Lauren, thanks for raising your hand. Go ahead.
Sure. So my name is Lauren. I'm from Connecticut. One of the things that I discovered when listening to the first row about the 7 M's is that I work as an academic coach, and it's a lot of what we do already but never had a framework or an idea or language to put to it, particularly the idea of motivation as a myth. I think could be a really powerful discussion to have with students, because it's always something more than just the academics that's holding them back from being successful. So I discovered that a new way to phrase the idea of motivation that I think might be helpful for students.
Thanks a lot, Lauren. Now what I'd like to do is shift to another way to assist you to possibly think what you've never thought. Maybe even to write what you've never written. I want to very quickly review 13 strategies from becoming a master student. Now, I know only about 20% of you on this call use that book, but these strategies are very general and all-purpose suggestions. They are general ideas for increasing involvement, for increasing energy and excitement in our life in general. So I'm going to go through these even more quickly than I did the 7 M's. They are 13 strategies. And the reason I do this is to assist you to think. This is just fodder for your own creativity. So please don't take the time to write down what I'm saying or these 13 strategies. If you want them, they're in the book. You can sample a copy of Becoming a Master Student. You can read about these. My job is not to explain them. My job is to provide for your own creativity so that you can return to the purpose of this call. And I want to remind you that the purpose of this call is for you to invent ways to inspire students, to inspire them to learn and achieve more. So with that in mind, here are 13 ideas. And please listen to these general ideas and then figure out if there's some specific way in which you could apply them. For example, the first general powerful process is to discover what you want. I think this really works to create your own self-motivation and your self-involvement. I also think it helps students. A lot of students don't know what they want, so as teachers we can constantly ask them and encourage them to look deeply. What do they want for the next 5 years and 10 years? What do they want with regard to their health, finances, their relationships, their career, and to assist them to go beyond I don't know, I don't care, I'm not sure, and to discover what they want even for the rest of their life and beyond their life. What do they want for their legacy? Next general idea is that ideas are tools, and that these strategies that we bring to students, they don't have to believe in, they don't have to adopt, they just can use if they like it, or they can lose it if they don't like it. Next general idea is to be here now. It's the idea of staying focused. Really powerful technique to classroom no matter what you teach. To challenge students to let go of all the distractions, to turn off their cell phone, to turn off their computer unless it's directly related to class, to ask them to do what they're doing when they're doing it, to be where they are when they're there, to ask for focused attention. Yes, sometimes we think about the future, we futurize, or we think about the past, we pasteurize, but the idea is to be here now. The next strategy is to love your problems, experience your barriers. In other words, quit resisting, quit fighting. The next idea is to notice your expectations, your pictures, and let them go, because our expectations often get in the way of what we actually have in front of us. The next idea is about self-responsibility. It's called I Create It All. The idea is to look to see what is my role in the matter. Next strategy is to detach. Practice the art of non-attachment. Notice where we are connected and equated to some other activity outside of ourselves and release that. Next idea is to find a bigger problem, to take on something grander. All of us have problems as teachers, as administrators, as parents, partners, students. We all have problems, but most of us don't spend our time and energy on problems that are worthy of us. The general idea is to take on something even bigger. Next idea is to employ your word, to use your word to pull yourself forward. And to choose your conversations. Choose the community that you want to hang around. Risk being a fool. That means to really take risks in life. Surrender to what is occurring. And then my favorite, the last of these 13 strategies, is to practice being it. So often what we do is put our attention on what we're doing and the results that we're producing, what we're having. I don't think we're human havings or human doings. We really are human beings. The strategy is to focus on our values, our attitudes. Well, those are very quick overview of 13 strategies. And again, my purpose was to help you think about what you might do. Because this is really the focus today, is who you might be, what you might do differently, what you could invent, what new strategies you could bring into your life, into your classroom, so you could inspire students to learn more and achieve more. Stop again, just like I did before, and this time I'm going to give you another minute, and I'd like you to concentrate on intentions. During this minute, please write what you intend to do differently in your class. Start this sentence with I intend to, or I will, or I plan to. And if you haven't thought of anything in the last few minutes while I was going through those general strategies, this next minute is the time for you to invent. Invent what you could do differently, how you could be different, so that your students you work with, and even the people you hang around are more inspired, achieve more. Here's 1 minute for you to reflect and to write intentions. Go. this idea of having students write and then speak to each other in small groups is something I've been doing for 3 decades. And it's one of the best strategies I have to inspire students to learn more and achieve more, which is to get them to invent their action plans and then to speak them to other people. So now I'm going to give you a chance to speak. It's going to it's again. As before, most of you are going to be in the same group, but we did have a couple of people join late, so we've moved you into a group. If you get into your group and you take the leadership role, if you were the leader before, please be the leader again. If nobody really took the lead before, you take the lead this time. Find out who's in your group and go around and listen to intentions. That's what I'm asking you to do, is fill this 4 minutes with what you intend to do differently. And particularly fill it with something that maybe is new, creative, innovative, something that you hadn't thought of before. And let's say you haven't even thought of anything yet. Well, you've got 4 minutes to think about it and practice speaking what you can. I'll give you a 3-minute warning, and please find out who's in your group because it's going to be a little different. Like before, I'm going to do a little eavesdropping. So, and if you have problems in your group, hit 5. Here we go. You're going to go into your groups now. Wow, that was great. I really heard a lot that I want to celebrate. I actually want to repeat a couple of things, and then I want to hear from a few of you. So if you're willing to share one of your intentions or even 2 of your intentions, please hit 1 on your keypad. But this is what I heard. First of all, that a lot of you immediately took the lead. As soon as I said go, you were asking who else was in your group. You were asking them to speak their intentions. And I believe that that's what occurs with students. I've seen it over and over again. It's not just professionals. I also heard one of you say how it takes more time when you actually take a leadership role in getting students active instead of just speaking. I heard an expression that I'd never heard before. One of you said, it takes more preparation to be the guide on the side than the sage on the stage. And let me just repeat that again. It's so good. It takes more preparation to be the guide on the side than the sage on the stage. Good job. Good job. Now I'd like to hear from a few of you. What do you intend to do differently? Please hit 1 on your keypad, and I'll call on you so we can just have your voice on this call as well as mine. And after I hear from a couple of you, I'm going to talk about the use of affirmations and visualizations. But first of all, B, go ahead. What's your intention?
It's actually Deanna. I'm here with B, but I intend to love the problems or the barriers that I sometimes perceive in the classroom and see them as opportunities for change and transformation rather than just difficult problems.
Great. Yeah, very good. Thank you. Somebody else. How can you specifically apply some of the general principles we discussed? Please hit 1 on your keypad. What could you do specifically so that you're more inspired, so that students are more involved, so that students take a more active role in their own education? Maybe this was something that you wrote down as your intention and you spoke it, or maybe it was something that you heard from someone else. We'll go to Casey. Go ahead, Casey.
In our group discussion, Katie had pointed out the word facilitator, which really struck a chord with me. I think that in my teaching, I've really removed the term of professor and instructor and tried to focus more on facilitator, right from the first minute of course, to empower students that I'm not driving the ship, that they are.
Yeah. Very good. I think that's the idea, that we aren't there to force education on students. We're there to facilitate their particular learning. All right, thanks. Now what I'd like to do is spend a minute having you think about how you might be able to use visualizations to this same end. Visualizations are when you ask students, or when you can do this yourself, is you imagine the world that you want. You can imagine the classroom you want. You can ask students to imagine the grades they want, or the performance in a sport that they want. Visualizations are used in music. They're used by actors and actresses. Visualizations are used by students and teachers. I use them all the time. First step is to decide what you want to improve, and then write down in detail what it would look like, sound like, and feel like, and even smell like, and touch like. What would it be like to have the life that you're describing? You write it down, and you imagine it in detail. You imagine the successful realization of what you've written. And by doing that repeatedly, you create in your mind the future before you get there, and it's therefore much easier for you to take the moment-to-moment actions. That's that future. You can even do this with mistakes. You make a mistake, create an error, you can imagine replaying it in the way you want it to be. So rather than just focusing on the error, you say, okay, well, I did make that error, now I want to do a replay. But in my mind, I'm not going to replay it as an error, I'm going to replay it as success. Love that approach of assisting students to be successful. Something related to that is affirmations. Now, affirmations are a way to change attitudes. Whatever attitude you have. For students, they might say, I have a bad attitude about school, or I don't do math well, or I can't keep up in class. Those are all beliefs or attitudes, points of view that you want to help them erase and replace with something else, like I, Dave, have a great attitude about school. I, Dave, am excellent at math. Now, some students will argue, they'll say, well, wait a minute, it's not true, I'm not excellent at math. I know, but if you repeat it over and over, if you start to change your attitude, it's way more likely that you'll become excellent at math, way more likely. Now, of course, you have to study, you have to practice, but all that study and practice in bumping up against an attitude of I can't do math, it makes it really hard to move forward. Shift that attitude to one of I'm great at math, my grades haven't caught up yet, but I'm great at it. You're not really lying, you're just prematurely telling the truth. You're just telling the truth in advance. Now, when doing these affirmations, please encourage students, first of all, to do it in the first person, like it's I, Dave, da-da-da-da-da, with the new attitude. And you're describing the future. You're describing the future in positive terms. So it's not I, Dave, can't do math. It's I can do math. Or it's not that I'm no longer bad at math. It's that I, Dave, am good at math. You describe it in detail. I'm not only good at math, but I get great grades. And it's easy to figure out. And you involve all of your senses, your sight, your sound, your smell, your touch, your taste, in this affirmation. And then you repeat it out loud with conviction several times a day. Just great ways to assist students, to inspire students to be more effective, to help them invent ways to inspire themselves. Affirmations and visualizations. Well, we've only got 4 minutes left in our time together, and what I'd like to do is do a couple of more surveys, because I want to let you know that we are going to do some more virtual gatherings like this. They're coming up. We're going to do one on critical thinking, and I'd love to have you attend again. It's on October 31st and November 1st. It's on becoming a critical thinker and Bloom's taxonomy. We're talking about effective ways to encourage critical thinking, attitudes that promote critical thinking, and in ways to increase creativity. November 7th and 8th on professionalism and ways to promote classroom civility and assist students to define their own values and actions. After that, on November 14th and 15th, we're going to talk about career readiness and transferring college skills to the workplace. So we've got a lot planned. So what I'd like to know is, first of all, did you have new thoughts? So we're going to do another survey because, as I told you at the beginning of this call, my job wasn't to just give you some of my thoughts. My job is to assist you to create some new thoughts. So please hit 2 on your keypad if you didn't really think anything new. I can take it. I want to know, actually, if this didn't work. So hit 2 if you didn't think anything new. Hit 3 if you had 1 or 2 new thoughts during our time together. Hit 4 if you had several new thoughts. And hit 5 if you had some really valuable new thoughts. So if some of those new thoughts you feel like were really valuable, hit 5. If you had several new thoughts, hit 4. If you had 1 or 2, hit 3. And if you didn't really think anything new, hit 2 on your keypad. Most of you have voted. A few of you haven't. I'd like all of you to just reflect for a minute and take a stand and say, well, did I learn anything? Did I think anything new? A few of you are in a group. Well, so far, 37% of you said you had 1 or 2 new thoughts, and 22% of you said you had several new thoughts, and 14% of you said you had some very valuable new thoughts. So great. Capture those. Then we got one more survey before I say goodbye. And this last survey is 1 to 5. Are you coming back? In 2 weeks, either on Wednesday or Thursday, 2 weeks from now, will you return? Hit 1 if you're not returning and you think I should not even bother doing it because it's not that useful. Hit 2 if you're not returning, but you think it was actually useful, it's just not the right call or the right time for you. Hit 3 if you'll probably be back. Hit 4 if you will be back. Hit 5 if a team of wild horses couldn't keep you away. So 5 means absolutely I'll be back. A team of wild horses couldn't keep me away. 4, you plan to be back. You will be back. 3, you'll probably be back. 2, you're not returning, but you think this is a good idea for me to do it again. But if you think that this was a waste of your hour and not only aren't you returning, but I shouldn't do it again, please hit 1 on your keypad. Well, I just want to let you know that one of you hit 2, that you're not going to be back. The rest of you said either you probably will be, or 11% of you said a team of wild horses couldn't keep you back. 32% of you say you will be back. So I'm glad for that. I'm glad to have you come back. In 2 weeks from yesterday or today, you'll get an announcement from Cengage. I want to end this call by thanking Wadsworth and Cengage for sponsoring this call, and forward to being with you again, and really thank you for the work that you do. I don't know any work that's more important than what you do, which is to help create the future leaders of our world. So thank you very much, and goodbye for now.